Amanda, I think one of the big ideas in Three Cups of Tea is that through education, we can connect people to the rest of the world. And there are so many communities in third world countries especially that are segregated and isolated because of illiteracy. And they don't know what's going on in the world, their own countries, even sometimes what's going on outside their own villages. And if people in these types of communities were educated, they would have the means to expand outside their villages and to connect with their countries and the rest of the world. I mean, if you look at what education does in America, kids today are so in touch and so connected with the rest of the world, and they have the means to learn about other cultures through textbooks and the internet and other things like that. And even within the school, you can see how kids are connected. I mean, they're making friends and making clubs and being involved in extracurricular activities. And through those extracurricular activities, you can meet people outside your community, outside your school, in other towns, and like even across the state. And once you go on to college, you can meet people from all over the world. I mean, even at Luther, there's kids from the South, from the East Coast, from the West Coast, even from other countries. And because of that, we get to learn about other cultures in other countries. And I think that the rest of the world should be like that. And we should all be working towards and connected and achieving one common goal. And that's education. And I think Greg Mortenson realized that.
One of our topics is understanding people's cultures and being tolerant of them and understanding diversity in the world that you live in. And we picked that as one of the big ideas to get out of this book because the world is a changing place. Even America, even though that Greg Mortenson, he most of the stuff he does, it takes place, on the other side of the world. We're not in our own little section anymore. We have to be conscious of what else is going on in the world. And that applies to education too. More and more, especially in inner city schools, there's different cultures coming. Immigration is going crazy right now. People are living so many different lifestyles, and it doesn't matter what you are personally, because if you're a teacher, you have to apply everything to what you're doing with your students. The way Greg shows us how to apply this to our own lives is he's always the person that goes out of his way to make sure he is not offending the people around him. When he's in Pakistan, he wears the shalwar kameez, native clothing, even though he's a big, strange-looking Minnesotan white guy. He learned how to pray from a merchant in a city. He does everything he can to make sure he's not looked at as too much of the outsider or too much of an infidel. Throughout the course of the book, it allows him to do things that no other human has ever done. It just really goes to show how as long as you aren't pompous about your own ideals, you can get far with other people if you're willing to make compromises, just meld into whatever you're doing. Another example of how this kind of behavior helped Greg out, after he first built the Corfy School, he decided that he was going to try and, instead of staying in that area, branch out his influence in the CAI. So he went to, I'll look it up here real quick, Waziristan. He went to Waziristan. So he decided he was going to go here and try to meet with some people, get some connections, even though he'd never been there before, and try and start building schools. When he got there, he arrived at a smuggling compound and ended up being held captive for 10 days while his wife was pregnant with his first child. He speaks Balti, but they don't speak that in that region. So he knew some words. He knew enough to just say thank you and just be as kind as possible, even though these people were treating him like dirt. He prayed when they would be called to prayer. He would pretend to pray. Eventually someone showed up and released him. Because of what he did, he's still alive, and he's was able to continue his work. And so that's just another example of how important it is. And that's really something that I think this country needs to do more of, and our education too. This can be connected to our EdSci class. Just last week we were talking about the 5 biggest problems that occur in our world, and one of them was religion. There was religion on there, terrorism, things like that. The fact that you need to understand people and you need to connect with them is the answer to those problems. So how does this apply to our educational system in the States? We have cultures from all over the world in our schools, and all of these children need educations, and they need to be understood. I think that to be able to teach, you have to be able to get inside the person that you're trying to connect, that you're trying to teach. You can't do that unless you know something about them, unless you understand their culture, understand their heritage, their background, their language. But the point is that you need to at least understand that there's differences there, and try to make the best of them.
So like we said before, motivation is one of the key factors in this book. Greg Mortensen shows us that you can do anything if you're motivated. Although he wasn't motivated by a reward. He wasn't getting anything in return. He was just doing it to better the people of Pakistan. One of his key motivators was his sister, and family often plays a big role in everything that we do. And not only did he have his sister, but he was also motivated by people in the world that had done the same thing. Greg shows us that if you are motivated, you can do anything. You can change the world. And he encourages all of us to do that. As long as we're motivated, things can happen. Motivation can also be used in the schools for kids to do the best they can. As long as they have a reason to do something, they'll probably do it. In most cases, kids will do anything for reward, like a good grade, or maybe a pizza party, which usually doesn't happen. But some kids, they'll just do it because they find the motivation in themselves to do it. They have that inner want to get something that they want to get done. By helping kids be motivated, just like Greg, we could change the world even more than Greg did himself.